Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Training Industry Learning Tech Showcase Learning Management Systems, sponsored by Adobe, D2L, Litmos, Instructure, and 360 Learning. So I'm Liz Spate, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Before we get started, though, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of today's program. So feel free to open up those chat windows and let us know where you're joining us from today. I'm broadcasting live from sunny Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's just a pleasure to have you with us here today. So while you're doing so, feel free to use this chat window for any comments as well as questions. We also have the Q&A panel as well. We will be addressing questions throughout today's session as well as some dedicated time at the end, and we have an entire Litmos team here to address those questions. So please do not hesitate to plug those questions throughout. And once this session ends, you will receive a brief survey that will appear in your browser. Please take a moment to share your feedback on the session and the speakers. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include a link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. Now, if this is your first event with us, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's showcase, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, our membership, and our podcast. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platforms so we can continue the conversation. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker today. We have Sean McGinty, CPTD Manager, Product Evangelist at Litmos. So with that, Sean, take it away.
Thank you so much, Liz. Good morning, everybody. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get this party rolling. We've got 25 minutes, so I'm going to make this quick. I am Sean McGinty. I lead product evangelism here at Litmos. I've spent more than 2 decades on the other side of this screen in learning and development, building and delivering training programs across sales enablement, customer success, compliance, technology, leadership development for organizations ranging from monolithic tech companies to national law firms. And I am now on the vendor side. I'm not just a vendor. I used to be a customer for 6 years before Litmos offered me the opportunity to make the jump. So Litmos is a AI-powered learning management system trusted by more than 30 million learners across 4,000 plus organizations worldwide. We help L&D teams design, deliver, and measure training that moves performance, not just completion rates. So, with that, what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about why your live training isn't building capability and how to fix it. So, quick agenda. We're going to start with the introduction that I've just finished, and we're going to look at building capabilities. We're going to show you how Litmos can help you build those capabilities in a way that's measurable, scalable, and connects to real business outcomes. I promise this is not going to be all PowerPoint slides. But with that said, let's go ahead and level set here real quick. The Association for Talent Development, ATD, defines a capability as the integration of knowledge, skill, abilities, and behavior that professionals need to perform successfully. They also define a skill as a learned and applied ability that uses an individual's knowledge effectively in execution or performance. So this is so that we know that these two words are not interchangeable because they are different. And I feel like on the vendor side of things, when we look at messaging, we see them used interchangeably. But as practitioners, we know there's a difference. And I like to level set with that before we dive into capabilities and skills. So, live event to capability journey. One of the things that I hear from my colleagues and that I experienced specifically when I was working in legal, and 90% of our training was delivered as classroom facilitation, either in person or virtually, is that a lot of capability building happens in the room and then it evaporates. You know, we just go back to doing our thing and we never apply the knowledge that we have. So If someone asked the right question, a facilitator saw who could apply the skill, a learner practiced handling an objection, and a manager noticed a gap. But we don't capture all of that all of the time. So we probably get attendance. Maybe we get some notes from a sticky on the wall, and we've got a recording in Teams somewhere for a virtual event that gets buried. So in the chat, I'd love to know who watches recorded meetings. We're grinding away at all this compute power and storage, but are you actually utilizing them? Are we taking those and putting them in the LMS so that that experience, that knowledge, that session doesn't get lost in time? So these are the things that we're going to go ahead and talk about, the gap that we're going to close today. And I'll start with we're going to help drive three business outcomes, less operational overhead. Every capability moment is going to be captured and faster learning acceleration. So with that, um, we're going to dive into the LMS and I'll pop back and forth between these screens. I've got some stuff on the slides going forward that are going to be a little interactive. So let's talk about our first mindset. Live training can't just sit off to the side in a learning ecosystem. We really got to do both pre-work and post-work, and we've got to have it all connected to the same learning journey. And with that, let's go ahead and pop in. So this is the admin dashboard within Litmos. Now, what we're going to do is start talking about capabilities and learning paths. So when we take a look at our learning path, and of course I've let myself expire. Give me 1 second. There we go. Yep. All right. So we have this competency that is tied to our learning path. So in this demo environment, in this use case, we're talking about consultative customer conversations. So we're looking to drive that soft skill, where people aren't just feature dumping. I don't know how many of us were at ATD a couple of weeks ago and walked through the expo, but everything had AI, everything could track this, could monitor that, but how does it solve the business problem? So that's what we're trying to define here. So we have a capability called consultative customer conversations, but it's made up of 10 skills. Active listening, communication adaptability, decision support, empathy, guiding conversation, needs analysis, objection handling, questioning and discovery, solution matching, and trust building. So all of those are part of this competency. When we take a look at our learning path, nope, let me just refresh all these tabs. Listening to the fantastic 8-bit techno music during the intro and didn't come in here and refresh. So I'm going to go into the content library here within Litmos. I've got a lot of content in here, so I'm going to go to my recently viewed. You can see I've got 8 here, and I have my consultative customer conversation learning path. Within here, I can see all of my modules, and we're going to take a look at how these modules work together to drive capability in this journey. The first 2 modules are going to start off as pre-learning, and our third module is going to allow us to set a baseline before we have an instructor-led learning moment. So let me go ahead and pop back over to our uh, our PowerPoint presentation here. Here's a breakdown of the modules that I have within this learning path. And I want to go ahead and kind of talk about the mix of the module types that we have here. So when we look at module 1, the consultative mindset, and module 2, knowing your customer, these are self-paced pre-work. We've got an audio file. It's a podcast where We have two hosts talking about the difference between consultative and transactional conversations and what their difference is. Then we have an executive message from our sponsor of this program on why this matters to not only you, the learner, but the organization as a whole. And then we have a self assessment where people talk about the types of conversations they're having so that we can create a baseline. After that, we've got a score module where they're going to learn about customer intelligence. We've got a link to LinkedIn Sales Insight so they can get some data around how they're having these conversations and they're selling. And then we've got a support, job aid as a PDF, the pre-call planning guide. So all of these are our pre-work. Once we get into module 3, this is our coached or guided and coached practice. So we're getting people in using the video assessment for their baseline before they even step foot in the classroom. So they're getting used to using the skills that they developed in their pre-work independent without anyone in the room, without any teasing, without any bullying, without any feedback until their manager reviews it and provides some feedback. So it's a safe space for failure, the video assessment. Once we move on from the video assessment, we're talking about, and our instructor led training, we're talking about collaborative and social learning. If you take a look at the mix we've got here, we have a variety of video assessments along with some learner uploads and some regular knowledge checks and a survey so that they're practicing, they're working in groups, and they're getting feedback from their manager and from the instructor, and they're working together as a team. After that, we have our application and confirmation of the capability. We've got a full conversation simulation running as a live ILT session, along with learner upload and a capstone assessment at the end, so that we can track throughout this entire journey of 7 modules where they started, where they ended, and compare the scores. So Jordan is our learner in this instance. Let me go ahead and pull up Jordan's profile. So when Jordan logs into Litmos, he is going to see, oh, this is, sorry, too many sessions open at the same time. There we go. Instead of the screenshot, this is actual LMS. So when Jordan logs in to the LMS, he's going to see all of his assigned tasks. He's going to see, his to-do list. And when we click in on the learning path, it comes up on the side here, tells him how much he's completed, how much he has left to go. He can look at the results and feedback that he's receiving from his instructor and from the manager, all from the homepage here. He can also dive into his learner profile in the achievements section to see what competencies he's been assigned for his job role. So he's got one competency assigned currently. It's our consultative conversation program, and he's acquired 5 of his required skills. So when he clicks on this, we get a pop-up window, and he's at 50%. He's seeing that these are skills that he has to acquire as a new account executive. He sees when he attained them and how he attained them. In addition, he can see, all of his learning path completions, any certificates he's earned. If gamification was enabled, he'd see his points and his badges and his levels completed. But right now, we're really just focused on skills and competency-based learning. All of this assignment for Jordan, the assignment of his job role, the assignment of a competency, this is all automated on the back end of Litmos. So let's talk a little bit about the automation. So, the majority of L&D teams keep being told to do more with less. We're seen as a cost center. We're the first to get cut. We're the last to get funding. So we're doing some heroic work behind the scenes all day, every day. You know, I've been that one person team managing registrations, chasing attendance, sending reminders, moving people off wait lists, updating spreadsheets, chasing down managers for support, all before a learner ever walks into a ILT setting or a VILT setting. I want them to have context. I want that pre-work to be completed. I want them to have a baseline. When I was working in construction and legal, all of our training sessions had to be 25 minutes because buildings need to get built and lawyers bill in 6 minute increments. So pre-work was huge for me in those two stops along my career because it allowed us to spend that 25 minutes without having to level set, without having to build context or background. So this learner journey is important. The way we construct it allows us to get the most out of the limited amount of time we have to interact with our learners, either in person or virtually, in a setting designed for us to help them and develop them. So, with that, we've got this assignment engine in Litmos that helps us automate all of the things that we want to do. In this instance, automating the assignment of onboarding, automating the assignment of a job role, automating the assignment of competencies. All of it's based off the data we get from the HRIS or through an import sheet when users are created. So we're sitting here looking at Jordan. He's an account executive. He's got his skills. How did we get there? Well, we got here by having our assignment rule automate assignments. So I created this rule for people created any date past the 5th of this month that have the job role account executive to assign them to the consultative customer conversation program, assign them to a team, which I created for this training session, which is Tech Showcase, and assign them a brand, which is a theme or a UI UX experience within the LMS. Um, you know, everybody in the LMS can have a different user interface based on their role, their department, their company, um, and these are the things that we'll automate here. I could also, if this was not an onboarding rule, I could unassign them from things. So if I've got a rule for after they complete onboarding, I can remove them from an onboarding team and assign them to a go forward team or their department team. I can schedule the rule so it can run on specific dates or related to events. If I wanted to make sure to schedule them a new, non-onboarding, but after a 90-day period of development, I can come in here and say relative to user events, when they complete this onboarding learning path, I then want to assign them a new learning path 30 days after that. So I can try to plan out my entire year as a one-person department on all my required training, all my compliance training, all of my onboarding by role, by department. I can have it all set up in here, and it's based off of the ability to run with a frequency. For this, I have it set for one day. We can also go in and have it set to run at first login. And we can have 50 of these rules. So when a learner first logs into the LMS, as a new hire, I can have 50 rules that run at that time. And it can set up their entire environment within the LMS on their first login, assign them all their content, assign them to their teams, notify their manager. We can automate all of it. So the automation, the learner experience, the actual getting content done and completed, none of it matters if we're not capturing it and acting on it. So this is the moment where a ton of learning platforms will fall short. You know, live sessions happen, the data disappears. You know, we don't want that. We want to get to Kirkpatrick level 3 and 4. Yes, Instructor-led learning, be it in person or virtual, can show behavior change if it's used in a lab or flipped classroom environment. Our video assessment tool, which allows learners to demonstrate mastery of a soft skill or a hard skill. I've used it in sales, I've used it in construction, totally differently. Show me how you do discovery questions versus show me how you install an outlet. These tools can give us those Kirkpatrick level 3 behavior change evidence. Level 4, that's got to be with your business data, and we'll talk about reporting and how to tie that in just a second. But let's talk a little bit about capturing the profile and acting on it and all of those things. So we've got our ILT session rosters, um, and there's a difference between attending and completing and providing a score. So let me go ahead and pop back into the LMS. And we'll go ahead and take a look. Here we go. At our instructor-led learning. So when I click on our practice lab, it brings me into the calendar, and I could switch this to a list view, but it gives me a lot of tools here. So I can see that today is the 8th, and I have a discovery practice lab. If I click on it, it happened this morning. I can make changes to it. I can delete it. It's done over with in the past now. So what I really want to do is I want to look at my registrations. So I've got all of these people registered. If I go to roll call, I can do my attendance. So in the case of Bob, the way I set this up for this demo is that yes, Bob attended on the 5th. However, Bob left early. Bob didn't complete the course. So, he doesn't have a score. He didn't get to participate in the lab work and the group dynamic and demonstrate his mastery of discovery questioning. So, Bob didn't get it completed, but he got an attended. So, that's one way that we can show whether or not progress happened in an instructor-led environment. The other is by listing a score. He's going to get a 0. You know, Jordan, if I come in here, he participated. He he did well. We scored his virtual assessment uh, as his baseline, and he showed real improvement. Those things can be put in the virtual assessment notes or the video assessment notes. Those things could be added here in context. But right now, you know, I've I've made my attendance and my completion and my scoring. All of these allow me to, track real progress that's happening. And if I go back to module 3 and I want to look at the baseline, our video assessment, this is very easy. I came in, I created this module, gave it a name, gave it a description, and then asked the learner a question. In which case, I asked them to provide 3 discovery questions used to get today to engage with potential clients. I can do a lot more than just ask a simple question. If we're working on changing behavior around word usage, if we're launching new messaging, this is a sales training for sales enablement. So we could come in here and have words and phrases that we would like the learners to demonstrate using and to avoid using. And it will go into the scoring in the transcript. It'll color code the the keywords that you want them to include as green and the keywords you want them to avoid as red. I can set a time limit for the video so that I'm not, you know, doom scrolling through a bunch of videos, at the end of my day on a Wednesday or Thursday. I can decide whether or not the learner is going to see the results right away from the automated scoring that the AI does, or if they have to wait until their manager has done a review. Um, Manager will get notified as soon as the learner uploads their video, and they can either record it in the browser or they can upload it from another device. Um, and then we can also decide to send the learner an email as soon as their manager has reviewed and marked this module complete. So between the pre-work and the lab work, we've set a baseline and we're seeing progress. Going into reporting, you know, if Jordan passes the assessment, we have evidence of his capability. If Jordan attends these practice labs and he struggles on the assessment, that's not a that's not a failure signal. That is a tell that we, as learning and development professionals and as their manager, is an opportunity for coaching. If you're you know struggling on the assessment, you're doing really well in the classroom, you know maybe there's some test anxiety. Maybe there's the questions on the test need a revision. Let's go into the reporting, see how many people are struggling with a particular question. And if 90 people all struggled with the same question, then there's a good possibility that question needs to be rewritten. So, this comes down to usable insight for coaching and developing. It's not about moving people out, it's about moving people up. So, our world revolves around data. Without it, we can't prove that something happened. Um, Everything that we do, we need to make sure we're having evidence produced that shows the progression and the value of what we do when we're working with our learners. So reporting in Litmos is very user friendly. We have two types of reporting. We have our reporting engine, which allows you to build a ton of custom built reports that can be saved and scheduled and emailed out to all of your stakeholders. And then we also have quick reports, which are canned reports. If I come in here and I click on, learning paths, I can see all of my learning paths. I can scroll down and find my consultative customer conversation program. And I've got my two folks in here. I can see where they are. I can drill down into Jordan, who's the only one who's completed anything. And I can see where he's at. He's 67% of the way through module 3. That's probably telling me that, no one's graded his video assessment yet. The machine score, the AI score right now for his ability to convey sentiment is neutral, which is good. It's better than aggressive or sad or mean. And I can see, how long he's taken and everything, what his scores are. You know, all of this is here. I can also, like, we we know he took an assessment in in module 2, so I can go into the assessment quick report and I can say, okay, consultative mindset, click on this, and I've only got one person who's completed it, but this is where I can look at my question level data. Jordan seems like he knows what he's doing. He had a problem with question 8. I should probably go if both Peter have a problem with it and Bob have a problem with it. If this continues to be a data trend where people are struggling with question 8, we look at question 8 and see, is it asking a question that wasn't covered in those modules? Um, is it poorly written? Do we need to go back and rewrite it? All of these things are within our ability to produce evidence, follow progress, and develop capabilities and skills. All right. If we go back to reports, we have our reporting engine. I'm just going to show you real quick on the reporting engine. If I come in here for learning path, I can look at a summary. And the learning path summary is all about the makeup of the learning path. What courses are in it, what modalities are those courses using, and statistics about assignments and completions. If I want to see learner data, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to user, and I'm going to go to details and results, and then I'll pick learning path. So here I can go in and I can look at all of the individual uh, courses and modules and exercises that they go through and get detailed learner data throughout the entire journey. I can also see all of my learning paths and the ratings that the feedback that the learners are giving them. I know we're getting close to the end, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about outcomes that change the business conversation. You know, why isn't live training building capabilities? It's not because the training's bad. It's because the live moment isn't connected to a larger capability system. We fix that in three ways. First, we reduce operational overhead by automating assignments, registration, scheduling, reminders, attendance. We do automatic attendance through Microsoft Teams and reporting. Your L&D team can focus on what matters, designing, learning experiences that move the needle when it comes to capability and skills progression and addressing business needs and business goals. Those are the things that require an actual human. Everything else can be automated. Second, we capture every capability moment by connecting ILT, VILT, e-learning, assessments, on-demand resources, video, audio, everything can be part of the same journey. There's no going into this system or that system or going out of the course and into a different course. Everything's contained within that learning path. And third, we turn live training into part of a continuous capability engine where managers and L&D leaders can see gaps, act faster, and protect the business from capability erosion. The goal isn't more learning activities. We don't need to create more content. We don't need to create more instances of learning. We need to create greater learning velocity. And Litmos is built for that.
Completely. Thank you so much, Sean. Yes, we are unfortunately out of time. We did have a couple of questions, but unfortunately, the Litmos team will have to reach out a little later this week to address those questions. But Sean, thank you so much for kicking off this event and getting our first demo on their way. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our audience today before I guide them to our next session / first break of the day?
Absolutely. Please reach out to anybody at Litmos, myself. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on our webpage. And live training shouldn't be more than a moment in a room. With Litmos, it becomes part of your learner's capability story, captured, tracked, and ready to act on.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Sean. And yes, Nikki mentioned in the chat, they will be addressing your questions very shortly. But there were many comments, outstanding, best session I've heard all year. So thank you so much, Sean, for just giving us
Excellent.
a good kick in the right direction for today's event.
For those of you that'll be at TICE, I will as well.
Same, same. I hope to see you all there. We will be taking about a 14 to 13-minute break. Up next, we do have Justin Seeley for their session sponsored by Adobe, How AI Assistants and Coaching Tools Personalize Learning. So I hope you all stick around for our next session, which will begin shortly. I will see you all there. Bye, everybody.
Bye all.